We are
All right.
live.
Woohoo.
Hello, it's me, Jay, your GM. I use he them.
Hello, it is me, your heir. I use he, him. And this is YouTube.
It's Jay on air.
It's Jay on air.
We
On D&D 24.
yeah, we got the book now. We've read the book. We're not important enough or cool enough to have gotten it early. So we got it at the normal time everyone else did. And then we read it a normal amount, and we cared about it a normal amount. And now we're here to discuss our opinions. And the only way we can express our feelings is with numbers. And so I've made this spreadsheet. Um, I think this kind of came about after a couple of conversations with you, where I began to become like deeply afraid that 2024 was actually worse than 2014 D&D.
I know.
Like
This
I started to feel like anxiety that actually maybe it's secretly worse. And I needed
No.
numbers.
No.
I needed the cold comfort of numbers to bring me back, to revive me, to bring back my strength, my confidence, my courage. And here we are.
Well, stick your courage, screw your courage to the sticking place, which is, of course, math. And, yeah, no, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I definitely
No, it's
blew up
fine.
a lot of mountains out of a lot of
Oh,
hills.
hang on.
I do think. Oh, yep.
Nope. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
I do think 2024 is on the whole better. There's just a
Mhm.
few
Mhm.
little bits here and there that I find inscrutable, and being me, I can't
Well,
let
hang
them
on. Don't
go.
make
I'm like a
conclusions.
dog with a
You're undermining our
philosophical bone.
content.
I know, I am. I am. Fuck the numbers. I know how it's gonna go.
Uh huh.
No.
Uh huh.
But yeah, I am sad. I am sad that I've driven you to this
No, I
final
I
solution.
appreciate it because frankly, this YouTube channel hasn't been used in a while, so it's good to get it active again. So let's just get straight into it. We're gonna take the
Yeah.
things and we went through and we gave our sort of like -1 to +1 feelings, like -1 0 or +1, like negative feeling, no feeling, positive feeling, on rules in 2014. We went down the list. We already ranked them all. And we're going to put our current feelings on 2024. Obviously, those feelings may change over the next 10 years of play of the system. Um,
Mhm.
and we're also going to to make it as fair as possible. I've included several things that I know I like better in 2014. I've also included things that I know I have trouble with in 2024. So it's going to be as fair as an assessment as possible to really see did we come out ahead. For a little preview here, overall over these rules that we've listed here, our impression was -9 for Air and -12 for me on 2014 rules. Um,
This
so
this
that's where we
game that we
start.
love, we
Yeah.
hated it that much.
Yeah, exactly. Well, specifically, these rules were sticking points,
Yes,
right? The only
yes,
thing that makes
yes,
the list
yes.
here are things that were worthy of contention. There are many rules that are not on the list that we just like concentration. I think would be a positive in both editions, but it hasn't changed, so it doesn't matter.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
let's begin with marshals. So in 2014, we both give these a -1, so a negative feeling. And I would say that largely has to do with the fact that marshals lacked, like, I think the fantasy of D&D, right, is that wizards have choice and marshals have damage. That marshals can do single target damage better than anybody else. They can just get in there. They can take damage. They can dish it back out, back and forth. The brawl in the melee. The reality on the ground in 2014 was not so positive. Wizards were better in melee and better defensively than marshals and better offensively than marshals. So marshals really had nothing. With the addition of fighting with combat battle masteries, as well as the addition of many new class features to every martial class. Where would you rank your feelings on marshals now? Would you say that they are okay or positive feelings now?
I have some pretty positive feelings about marshals right now because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
what they had was single target damage primarily, like you were saying, and their
Mm-hmm.
control options. They might have had a class or subclass feature.
Mm-hmm.
you might have been the monk, and a control feature was your best and basically only good feature.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but generally speaking, because of weapon mastery, because of the revamp to a lot of their subclasses, and some of their class features, there is a lot more control in the martial arsenal. And I think they still have that single target damage. I still don't think they've got, the AoE thing, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that should live with casters. That should
Mm-hmm.
be the domain of Fireball. So overall, I'm really happy with martials where they are right now. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
with a 1.
I think another thing of note in that regard is that marshals also got, in the form of monk, they got basically a new class because
Yeah.
previously it wasn't really worth taking, and now it's actually maybe one of the better. Like it's mid range
Yeah.
at least. It's in the middle of the pack. Right there
Yeah.
with fighter, right there with barbarian. I would say like it's right there in the pack. It's in the running. Um, I would also say that the defensive ability of monks, the deflect attacks, offers the first really totally unique defensive buff we have in the game that isn't counting on AC, that isn't counting on boosting saving throws, that isn't counting on HP, or like reducing damage taken like the barbarian. It is a fifth unique way to balance around defensive options. So I think that's cool. I think it's cool when they add a totally unique style of play like the Warlock. And now you have, once per turn, you can basically negate an attack coming at you. So if you're fighting a single enemy in a one-on-one battle, that's very advantageous. If you're going into a big group combat, that's a lot less defensively good. So now you might want to use your, dodge actions. It's an interesting sort of interplay that I think is going to be cool to play and fun.
Yeah, I mean, deflect missile was good. It was just
Mm-hmm.
too specific.
Too
Now that they're
situational.
opening it
Yeah.
up more, yeah, now that they're opening it up more, it is a lot better. And it's interesting how little the monk changed,
Mm-hmm.
and but changed massively. Like it really
Mm-hmm.
required a few little well thought out tweaks to really deliver. And it's nice to see
And
that
Monk
that's
always felt good. It just didn't like
yeah,
perform as well as it felt. And now I think it's going to do that. And it's so funny. Like when I've seen players get to it, like the first thing they notice is like, oh, the damage die went up. Ooh, that's awesome. And it's like, that's two. That's like one damage per turn. Who cares? But
yeah,
it's
that's nothing.
still it's all about the feel and the things that the people liked about Monk are still there. It's just got the meat behind it to back it up now, which I think is great.
And I
Um.
think we'll get into that when we talk about classes. The monk was
Mhm.
always the antithesis of the ranger. I think the ranger actually was
Mhm.
okay power wise, but felt bad because of the way
Mhm.
it was designed and the parts of the game it leaned into in 2014. But
Yeah.
we'll get to the ranger
Mhm.
eventually because I think that problem might persist now.
Honestly, did we put Ranger on the list? Maybe we should have.
Well, we got classes there, so
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Casters. I would say the reason I put neutral on casters in the 2014 edition is that I do think that they had problematic elements to them for game balance reasons. Like they were like of course casters were fun to play, they were good, but sometimes they were too good and it caused issues with game balance and figuring out how to work that. I still think that's a problem. So I'm keeping it 0.
I felt casters were the bar that marshals
Mhm.
kind of needed to be brought up to.
Mhm.
And you're right. I don't know that that really happened. I think casters also got better
Mhm.
and got more options in certain instances, to bring them into kind of eating the marshal's lunch a little bit. Like
Mhm.
marshals got control more so. Battlefield can throw through weapon mastery,
Mhm.
but there are definitely some things like True Strike and other magic caster things that are helping them with single target damage a lot more. Conjure minor elementals, we'll get there.
Uh-huh.
To the point that I actually have. I, yeah, it's a mixed bag. They're still
Mhm.
really good, and they still might be too good for it to allow for the Castle Marshall divide to be closed up. I think it is being closed up a bit, so I'm with you on there. I'm going 0.
Mhm.
It's a mixed
Um.
bag.
Yeah. So then we have classes. So I put 0 because I felt that there were good classes, there were bad classes. It was kind of a mixed bag. Whatever. I think that you can definitely also read that as a -1, like as a negative feeling, because like that broadness in that disparity shouldn't exist, right? Like no, I think that your -1 was totally fair there. I think that like
No, because I was looking at it thinking I have no idea why this
sure.
one there.
But like I think it was like good and bad. I think that broadly the classes have closed in quite a bit. The highs are way less high from like actually I
Hmm.
don't think the highs have
Hmm.
changed that much. I think the lows have changed a lot. The lows
Yes, the
have been brought
floor
up.
has risen.
The
Yes.
monk is like above rogue and rogue is above old rogue, and so everything has risen up quite a bit. The gap has contracted quite a lot. And so I think I'm willing to say that overall, I think that classes are in a positive place. I think that they're in a positive. They're not
I
perfect, but I think they're in a positive place.
I definitely agree with you on that. I
Mm-hmm.
think class balance is better than it was
Mm-hmm.
previously. I don't think it was too far out. Really, you had the outlier of like
Mm-hmm.
the wizard being incredible and like the gap between them was great, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the overall the enjoyment of those classes was still like I still saw people playing monks and
Mm-hmm.
rangers even if
Mm-hmm.
they were sometimes even more so than wizards, even though the power balance was definitely in the wizards'
Mm-hmm.
favor. So, but now, yes, I definitely think the floor has been brought up, and a rising tide raises all ships
Mm-hmm.
means the mean kind of the space between them a lot smaller.
Absolutely. Invocations. Invocations, I put a negative feeling in because we basically had one invocation, or like a few invocations that were like really strong, really good, and then a bunch of invocations nobody ever took because they were like
Yes.
once per day spells. And who's gonna take for their invocation slot, their very rare invocation slot, once per day spell, right? Like not many people.
Hmm.
And I think that they've broadly fixed that issue. I think that's a one. I think like invocations are in a healthy place now.
I'm going to tell you, I originally had invocations at one,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went and looked through all the invocations and
Mm-hmm.
realized that all the ones I liked weren't in the PHP from 2014,
Yeah.
outside of like agonizing blast and repelling blast. Like
Mm-hmm.
bestow curse once a day, and I'm still using a spell slot.
Yeah.
Do kindly fuck off. Like
Yeah. Right.
I cannot believe that that was the case. So yeah, when I actually looked at the PHP specific ones, I was like, no, the balance out of here is way, way out of whack.
Uh-huh.
Um, are they better now? Yeah, I love having all of the previous pack boons as a selectable invocation so you can mix and match them.
Mm-hmm.
I love the ones that they brought in from Tasha's, like Eldritch Mind, which, helps
Mm-hmm.
free you up from the Warcaster tax. And I think they have made the Warlock even more modular than it already was, which is what's key to loving the Warlock. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I am pretty positive about
The
invocations.
only one I was super worried about was the Hex Blade with the third attack. I really thought that that was going to eat the Warrior's lunch, and it does a little bit, but it's such a high investment cost that I don't think it's
Hmm.
that bad. Like when you have to take the Pact of the Blade, and then you have to take the one to get two attacks, and then you have to take the one to get three attacks. That's already three invocations deep, and then you probably want the one that gives you your healing off of it as well, and so that's another invocation.
Hmm.
So now you're four invocations deep on your pact, and that's basically every invocation. I think most of the invitations you're going to get in the normal levels that we play. So I think it's actually okay. And the level 11 limit also, or the level 12 limit,
Hmm.
means
Yeah,
that it's
yeah.
coming in later than the fighter gets their third attack, and not so much later that it really matters, but enough that like, okay, we're at least trying to honor the fighter's place as the three attacker a little bit, and I appreciate that. And
And
12
I
is
think
very
there's other
late. Yeah.
is very late. I mean, a lot of campaigns are wrapping up there. I
Mm-hmm.
also think there's other taxes to be paid. Like, sure, they're getting to attack with their charisma, but if they want to use a heavy weapon,
Mm-hmm.
they're still going to need a 13 strength. If they want to attack with a second weapon, that they can only have one pack weapon using their charisma. So what
Mm-hmm.
stat is that second weapon if they're going to lean dual wielding, which seems to be a solid play for melee marshals now?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to get a Cha-based way to do that as well. I think there's a
And they
lot
don't
of
get weapon
things,
masteries too, so they don't
and they
get
don't get
nick.
weapon masteries. They don't get nick, right?
Hmm.
Without a dip or without a feat. So
Right.
yeah, I think there's a lot of cost they're paying
Hmm.
to work as a melee marshal that
They
a
are paying.
regular melee marshal doesn't.
Yeah, they are paying a tax, and that's what we want. That's all we want. We want a caster
Mhm.
who dips into martial stuff to pay a tax equivalent to what the equivalent to something that makes it a trade-off, makes it a sacrifice, makes it
Yes,
feel
yes,
like it was earned. And I think they
yes.
do it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
subclasses. I mean, subclasses. I think a lot of what we say that's positive about classes really comes from the subclasses. Because
Mm-hmm.
raising that floor and bringing in that middle. I mean, we talk about the monk being an outlier class, but there were in every class, especially in the PHP, there were outlier subclasses that were just unplayable, like totally trash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we
How
had
much did Beastmaster get worked on, right?
uh-huh.
Like Beastmaster was worked on for Tashes, and it's again seen revision and changes now in
But
2024.
I mean, even ignoring like obvious ones like that, like you think about stuff like Fey Warlock, right? Pact of the Fey Warlock.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You think about Great Old One Warlock, which like
Warlock, yeah, the Gulak.
thematic, but not really that useful. You think about things like the Berserker Barbarian, right? Like all
Mm-hmm,
these
mm-hmm.
just subclasses that were basically not, they basically didn't exist because nobody would take them, and so at that point, they don't exist. And I don't think that there's a single subclass in the PHB now that I just would not take. I don't think there's anything in there. Like they all have something. Even Champion Fighter has
Yeah,
free inspiration every turn. Just DM inspiration every freaking turn at level 10. That's awesome. I mean, you're gonna feel like a rock star with just every single turn being able to be like, oh, I rolled with advantage, oh, I missed, or oh, I get a 18 is a crit, 19 is a crit. Oh, I rolled I'm on my third attack. I haven't used my demonstration. Yeah, I know I'm going to get another one next turn. Might as well just use it to fish for that, 18 to 19 or 18 to 20 crit. Just you're going to feel great. You're going to feel amazing as a champion fighter. And that's saying something because champion fighter is the most boring class
absolutely.
in the book.
I would say the champion fighter has the best of the 2024 PHB fighter subclasses, the best subclass capstone. Like
Mm-hmm.
they are damn near unkillable.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they get an 18, 19, or 20 on a death save, they're back up.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And
it's
that's at the
it's
top of their turn, too. So they get to take their whole action
yeah,
economy.
yeah, I want to play a champion fighter now, which I
Mm-hmm.
never thought I'd see myself. I thought subclasses were okay. I thought there was at least one or two good options in
Mm-hmm.
the 2024 PHB for each class. Sometimes there only were two options,
Mm-hmm.
but there was always something I wanted to play for every class. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was okay. I didn't think everything was great, but yeah, absolutely now
Mm-hmm.
way better balance, and they're all interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The reworks are great, the new ones are great. Even the ones that I don't think are like full, like have as much throughput as some others, I still want to play because they're just such interesting designs.
So
Like a dance part.
this one I think might surprise you, my take here.
Okay.
I'm actually going to give this one a 0 on the new version. And here's my thinking. I like what they've done here by adding a feat into your background. I like what they've done here by adding ability scores into your background. By divorcing that stuff from your race, that's great. Putting the feat in, making feats core, that's all great. But my problem is that there as we sit here today, there is no custom background option. And you have had 6 years now or 5 years now of Tasha's rules being out. Everybody got used to custom background, custom origin, whatever, custom variant human, whatever, where you can pick your feet, where you can pick where your ASIs go. They got used to like changing your ASIs wherever you want to put them. They got used to it. And I'm a DM. I play with players, and players get the new rules. They get excited about them, and then they come to me and they're like, "Hey, what's this with the background? What? Hang on. Why can't I put my ability scores where I want to put them? Why is there no background that gives me the two ability scores I want? Like why are they like so weird? Like why are the choices that they've made so weird? Like they don't give me con on, the thief rogue or whatever. Like yeah, people like to make their characters function well. They like to put their stats where they go. And as cool as they have done by adding origin feats and stuff like that, I don't understand not putting the custom background in the PHB. It belongs there. It belongs there. It was there in the
I
original
agree.
2014 book. It should be there. And so everything good that they've done, to me, it's been kind of undone by mandating stat appointments again, like by going back on, by backtracking back to the original way we did things, and requiring us to put stats in specific areas. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't like it.
I agree with you. There's the small caveat that there
Mm-hmm.
is a backwards compatibility thing that says if you play an older background that's not represented here in the new book,
Mm-hmm.
it essentially gives you the customization. Pick, 3+1s or +2+1, pick an origin feat. Like
Mm-hmm.
it gives you what would be all of the customization options if they would just write that out,
But
but it
D&D
applies
Beyond
its
doesn't support that, right? Like,
and D&D Beyond doesn't
yeah.
support it because it's a side
Mm-hmm.
panel in the book, right? It's not a core functionality. But it's like,
Yeah.
why would you put that there
Mm-hmm.
and not just spell it out in a general
Yeah.
rule?
It's so
Anyway, I
strange.
don't get it.
It's in the. It's gonna
I
be in the DMG, I'm sure, and it'll be fine. When it is,
yes,
it'll be the
yeah,
default option. Everybody picks whatever. But I,
yeah.
to me, it's just put it in the PHP. What's the point? Why are we playing games?
I mean, like, because background really was primarily
Mm-hmm.
flavor, like a ribbon feature, a
Yeah.
couple skills, couple languages. Like
It,
that's all it was before. It was
mm-hmm.
primarily flavor.
Mm-hmm.
You've given it more mechanical oomph
Mm-hmm.
and then restricted customization of that oomph.
Yeah, right? Like, it would be so cool if, like, I wouldn't even mind if the origin feat was settled as long as we got to put our ability scores wherever we wanted. I wouldn't even,
Yeah,
that I
I
would,
want the origin feat too.
well, yeah, but I mean, if you could put your as whatever, you could pick the origin feat, like, whichever background has the origin feat you want, right? And you could just
True,
flavor that
true,
however you want. But yeah,
true.
um, it's just like it's the combination of not letting us use the origin feat and not letting us use the ability scores. It just completely undermines the whole effort for me. It's like, I want to like this more than I do. D&D 24 in a nutshell. Race species. I mean, I feel like that's, they lost a bunch of stuff that they probably shouldn't have had to begin with. They didn't really gain anything new. So I can't feel any kind of special way about them. They're fine. They're still cool.
I-
There's still some cool
There's
stuff in there.
I do appreciate some of the changes that have been made to
Mhm.
like the way tieflings work, the way elves work.
Mhm.
Dragonborn are way better.
Mhm.
I'm already homebrewing that third level Azamar are not going to be able to fly. But there are some tweaks. I like them a lot. Am I super positive on them? I I mean, the thing is, we've seen this design, right? It was
Mhm.
in like Monsters of the Multiverse. We
Yeah.
saw a lot of these changes coming through. So they're not new, they're not fresh, they're not the new hotness. They're
Mhm.
kind of what we expected. So yeah, zero. Like, I'm
Yeah.
glad it's there. I'm glad it's been fixed up. But it was the first thing we really got to see. We knew this was
And they
coming.
lost ability scores, and they didn't gain anything new or fun to compensate for it. And so it's just like you can't help but feel like it's a loss, right? I understand we're still
Yeah,
getting that stuff elsewhere, and like there's very good
yeah.
reasons to move it elsewhere. But I don't know, give us some new keystone ability for our background. Just I don't know, it'd be
Yeah.
fun. It would be fun. I
I
don't
do
know.
think like there's some options in species that I'm like that's really cool. Like the stone cunning giving like dwarves tremor sense,
Mm-hmm.
if they're like specifically for stone. Like yeah, that's cool. That could actually have some throughput. It's better than advantage on history checks for
Mm-hmm.
knowing stuff about masonry, which is like super circumstantial
Mm-hmm.
and really just pigeonholes your dwarf into being the dwarfiest dwarf.
I would also say that this
But that's a
version. Oh,
specific
yeah.
example.
I would also
That's
say
yeah.
that this version of the variant human is probably the best variant human they've ever had. Like limiting it to an origin feat instead of just any feat really reins that power in.
Yes.
Versus like so it's no longer just the default option like it so often ends up being. Like getting a feat is so powerful in D and D. Getting a
Hmm.
feat in D and D is so powerful. Getting an origin feat can still be pretty impactful. I mean, if you're picking up one of those caster ones, spellcasting initiate feats, they're going to have
Hmm.
some pretty major impact. Even stuff like tough is going to have a pretty good impact. But I
Hmm.
could see picking a different ancestry over, like, the cumulative bonuses of other ancestries are definitely equivalent to an origin feat, or sometimes better than an origin feat. Certainly, level 3 flying is better than, I think, pretty much anything in an origin feat, except for maybe musician. And you can still pick a musician through your background. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's very much more balanced, but at the same time, still good. Still a very valuable choice. Like, okay, I want to get, you know, I want to get tough, but I also want to get spellcasting initiate. Okay, I'll go variant human. I can do that. And yeah, it's
It's not
great.
even variant human. It's just human. Variant
Yeah, I'll
human
go
is
human.
human now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
Speaking
yeah,
of
I
feats.
see all that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I was just gonna say when we're talking about origin feats, the real crux of it is that an origin feat is a feat that's going to support a playstyle, but
Mm-hmm.
it is not one that is going to define a playstyle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important. You're not getting
Mm-hmm.
sharpshooter at level 1 or something
And
where it's just
you're not getting stat boosts at level 1, so you're staying within
yeah,
the bounded
exactly.
range of level
Yes.
1 stats.
Yes.
Really nice.
Yes. They're a well-curated list, which brings us into feats.
Yeah,
Let's talk about feats
I mean, we already
as a
started
whole.
origins. We like them.
Yeah, like them. Fighting styles as feats.
Hmm.
I do kind of wonder about like because now you kind of have to multi-class to get the fighting style feature in
Hmm.
order to pick from those feats. You can't like get into them like you could with the Tasha's thing, the fighting initiate feat. But I think you've mentioned that's maybe a chalkboard problem. I think most
Hmm.
DMs will just let that fly, and
Hmm.
I agree.
Hmm.
Um, but what do we think of those general feats, Jay? What are you thinking about them general
I
feats?
really like the fact that they're all half feats now. I used to give out bonus feats in my
Mm.
games at level 1 and level 4. Level 1, it wasn't a bonus feat, it was just a feat. And then
Mhm.
level 4, I gave out a bonus feat. And the reason I did that is because I found that people often struggled to get enough feats to make their build ever go in the played levels, right? Like,
Mhm.
builds really have to theorycraft up to level 12 before they get their whole feat engine online. And part of that is that you need to spend some of your feats on ASIs. You need those ASIs to get your stats where they need to be to hit certain thresholds. Well, I don't have to offer that anymore because now every feat is a half feat. So every feat is boosting both your stats and giving you interesting play mechanics at the same time, which means that you're going to hit those stat thresholds. You're going to hit them a little slower than if you took just a raw ASI. But, if you start with a 16 in your primary stat or a 17 in your primary stat, then your first feat's going to bump you to an 18 or a 17. Your second feat's going to get you 19 or 18. And then that third feat's going to get you to 20. So, like, by level 12,
Eight,
every class has
12,
got,
12, yeah.
yeah, getting up at or near 20. Um, so it's like yeah, I think like they're in a pretty good place, and I think that like it makes the pressure of picking your feet like I guess I gotta pick ASI because I want to hit 20 strength before blah, blah, blah. Like it's always such a downer. Now you can be like, okay, I take this, I get a +1 to my strength, and then I also get this cool new feature that's gonna let me do cool new stuff in combat. It just feels good. I like it. I like it.
I know. I mean, you think you're absolutely right. It was this weird thing where like they designed so strongly around bounded accuracy, at least up until around between levels 10 and 12, and then bounded accuracy goes straight to shit after that, and that's why we
Mm-hmm.
don't play past those.
Oh
But
hush, that's not
yeah,
true.
I
But
know I'm
anyway.
silly. I'm doing it for the memes, Jay. Um, but I do think that giving you at those key level ups a qualitative versus a quantitative choice when you
Mhm.
know there's this quantitative scaling that you're going to have to work against, that is problematic. So giving a little bit of that quantitative boost on top of those other features, I mean, I think it really highlights a design decision to say feats are coming in as a core part of the game,
Mhm.
and we want you to take them.
Mhm.
Here's a little bit of what you would have gotten numerically on top of these other cool mechanical changes that you're getting for your class, that will be, definitional to its play style. If you're a martial, polearm master, great arm, weapon master, not sharpshooter anymore, rip. But those things are going to be um, things that you want if that's your play style, and they're going to help. reinforce that playstyle and that fantasy. And they're all, I think, better balanced. There's definitely still a few that are stinkers, but just the fact that they're all half feats means
Mm-hmm.
if you only need a +1, you're getting maybe things that are more ribbony than not. But
Mm-hmm.
hey, ribbons can be fun. Ribbons can be flavorful,
Cough,
and
chef, cough.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Chef stands out
Chef's
as a real outlier of like bad feet. Why
right
why didn't they give it
because the
anything?
balance. Right? The balance is so much better that Chef
Uh-huh.
just stands out as such a stinker. Like
Yeah.
even Keen Mind, which was
Uh-huh.
kind of more flavor than anything, or Actor,
Mm-hmm.
got some stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, beats generally speaking, love them.
Um, so weapon masteries. I think this one can be quick because there was no weapon mastery in 2014. I think it's just a strict upgrade to the game. Makes fighters more
One,
interesting and yeah,
yeah,
good.
yeah, it gives control to marshals,
hmm
lets them work things, lets them,
I think
topple push. Yeah, love it, love
I
it.
think the casual player underestimates how much weapon masteries change the game.
Oh, it's huge. Like I
hmm
was looking at builds where it was like, oh, leveraging the push mastery to get to creatures within 5 feet so I
hmm
can leverage the cleave mastery. I'm like,
hmm
yeah. Oh, the synergy there is
hmm
so cool. It's gonna be
Yeah.
really neat.
Yeah. Weapon juggling. So this didn't exist previously, and now it does. We had a whole video on this. We've had a lot of back and forth and discussion and thought about this. It's a tricky situation. I do think it's a minus to the game overall, just because I think it's
Jeez.
just something that's too complicated for your average player to be worrying about. And when somebody uses it at the table, when somebody starts really juggling their weapons and optimizing around that kind of thing, I think it's going to create a weird pressure on the other marshals at the table to try and emulate that. And then they're going to have to like look at this nonsense and try and figure it out. And I feel for them. My heart breaks for them because it's nonsense.
It
Uh,
is one of the appendix of
mm-hmm,
D&D. It is a
mm-hmm,
vestigial change. It has
mm-hmm,
come about because they wanted to make weapon mastery work. You got to be
mm-hmm,
able to swap your weapons around so you can use the different masteries and a few other reasons.
mm-hmm,
But because of that, it has opened up the door to this stuff that min-maxers are, guilty as charged, going to want to work into
mm-hmm.
their builds and whatnot. And yeah, it's clunky and kind of ugly,
Yep.
and it's a byproduct. It's not an intention, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, let's do some fancy spreadsheet stuff here for a moment.
Ooh.
I'm just gonna. Where's the freeze? Where's the freeze first? Oh, actually, it's these little bars over here, isn't it? Yep, there we go. Now we can see our stuff as we go scroll down. All right. So fighting styles. I think very much like Invocations. The bad ones have been made much better, and the good ones have been made still good. So overall, they're better. Uh, there's one outlier one that still stinks. Great weapon, but we've like done so
Fighting,
much math
yeah.
on that it's like actually fine even with a terrible fighting style. So I think it's okay. Yeah, I think we're in a good place.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Yeah, I was looking back. I did the same thing as I did with Invocations. Absolutely. I'm
hmm
like archery, defense, everything else in the PHB sucks. I love the
hmm
change to protection,
hmm
lasting the entire round, so long as you
hmm
stay within range of the creature. Yeah, I like. I'm. I think it's really the fact that a lot of other fighting styles became more relevant, like two-weapon fighting, that those fighting styles haven't changed, but they're better because, there's more feats to support them. There's weapon masteries to support them. I'm actually going to go with zero. I think it's good, but I
hmm
still think I don't think it's the fighting styles that got better. I think it's the things supporting those fighting styles that
hmm
got better. So better, but I'm not super
Well,
enthused
we may
about them as
diverge
much
here again because I'm going to give spellcasting a -1. The new version of spellcasting a -1, and my logic here is simple. They didn't fix it.
as.
Force cage, wall of force, thorns. Oh my god, all these new emanation spells, which we'll get into later. Like, if anything, it's equivalently bad as it was, and you had 10 years of experience to fix it. So I don't know why we're still here.
I thought about this one a lot for the 2014 side of things because there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely problematic outlier spells, but they were a minority,
Mm-hmm.
but they definitely would ruin play. But there's a lot of ones that are really well balanced.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm kind of neutral there. Um, the fact that some of them that we knew were a problem didn't get changed or didn't get changed enough.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, I'm really I'm really torn between a 0 and a 1. Yeah, ultimately I'm going to give it a -1, and the real crux of it is that this spellcasting has always been choose your own class features,
Mm-hmm.
right? It
Mm-hmm.
has always been choose your own per use per day class features. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what makes casters so strong. And because there's such a wide variety of options, there's always going to be some that are better, some that are worse. And the range of difference between those two things is going to really define how important it is. And because there's still this number of options that are just so good at almost every spell level, yeah, it really is still problematic. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I know force cages concentration, I know it has a special component, but if I got one big enemy on the field and I can throw them in the force cage,
Mm-hmm.
it's still fight over. I'll pay the whatever amount of
Wall
gold
of
for
Force
that.
didn't get shit changed about it.
Yeah, no, I hope your creature's,
Mm-hmm.
bigger than 10 feet on a side because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise they're going in the bubble.
Yeah.
Like, yep.
I just feel like with 10 years of experience, they really ought to have gotten these most problematic spells, and they didn't for whatever reason. And they made changes to them, so they were clearly aware that there were problems. They just thought that, oh, giving it a component is a fix enough, and I don't agree. I have in my homebrew document, which is now less than 1 page, I would say about half that page are fixes to spells. Changing Force Cage and Wall of Force to have an AC and hit points, changing Hunter's Mark to not be concentration because it shouldn't be. Yeah,
Mhm.
like and conjure minor elementals, which we'll talk about in a minute. But that one's been homebrewed as well. Like half my
I still
page of
remember
rules are
when I
spells.
pointed out that Divine Favor now doesn't have concentration for
Hmm.
Paladins and Hunter's Mark, so then just the sheer
Yeah,
incredulity you
yeah.
had about, are you fucking kidding
Are
me?
you fucking kidding me? Because it honestly feels like Watsy's trolling. It honestly feels like Watsy's trolling. Um, all right, multiple spells rule. I think that this is a clear improvement. I think it's easier to understand, easier to play with, better.
You know what? I think it is a clear improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it a 1, but I actually want to skip meta magic. I do think it's better. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's clearer. Just one spell slot uh per turn
Mm-hmm.
um that you can cast. I want to skip to the crafting rules specifically about
Sure.
spell scrolls for a second because I think this is where the rub's going to come,
Okay.
because one of the options that they specified, because in spellcasting, because they've changed the multiple spell rules to one spell slot on your turn, they talk about ways that you can cast without using a slot. There's class features,
Mm-hmm.
species traits, etc., that allow you to cast without expending a spell slot. But they also call out spell scrolls. And in the
Mm-hmm.
crafting rules, in the adventuring gear, they have added in cantrip and first level spell scrolls. Obviously, we're going to get more of that in the DMG to find out their prices and their crafting times and all that. But I called shot now. I see it happening, at least for the power gamers who are coming to the table. Every single caster is going to want to be spending all their money crafting or buying scrolls of
Mm-hmm.
shield, scrolls of misty step, scrolls of counterspell, anything that might potentially uh, conflict with my using my action to cast a leveled spell using my spell slots. I want scrolls to get around it to do multiple
Mm-hmm.
uh, leveled spell casts a turn against the new rules, and they are going to be clamoring and asking DMs, "Is there a magic shop? Can I cast scrolls? Can I get the elements, describe them, etc., etc."
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be the new caster meta, and it worries me.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, I think from my feeling, crafting in general, I think is neat. I think it's cool that they have like more codified system for crafting.
I like
Uh,
healing potions in there, like.
I think crafting scrolls was already a thing in 2024, low key. Like I did it in my game when I was playing. I like just being able to expend a spell without a spell slot is already good. And now being
Amazing,
able
right?
to cast 2 spells in a turn makes it even better, significantly better. So definitely, I do think that like spell scrolls present a threat to the game. Um, I don't know that they're. I don't know. I honestly, I feel like this is something where, 3 years
We're
from now,
gonna
I'll have
see.
a
Yeah,
more
yeah.
informed opinion about this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whether or not I need to homebrew in a rule saying that spell scrolls still take your action to cast or whatever. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think that this is definitely in flux. And so maybe a 0 is the right way to go.
And you know what? I like a lot of the other crafting changes. I like, that you can
hmm
make a basic potion of healing. I like that they define, all the tools and what you can make with them. Like there was a lot of great stuff that was
hmm
added into crafting. It's really this concern around scrolls being
hmm
this multi-leveled spell casting solution that I'm worried about. So we
Yeah.
will see where that goes in time, but it is dampening my joy of the crafting rules thus far.
hmm Um,
Meta magic.
Metamagic, I think Metamagic is very similar to fighting styles, very similar to invocations. They've raised the floor and kept the top around where it was. I think it's better. I think it's just in a better place.
I think it's far better.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at the PHP options, and definitely you had outliers. Twinned,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
amazing. Quickened, amazing. But all the other ones did have use. Like they
Mm-hmm.
maybe weren't as useful. You're spending a resource on them, but never did I look at any of them and think I would never use that. So I was like, they're pretty good, but now they've really
You're right. I'm
they
putting it
brought
back
down Twinned a
at
lot.
0 there.
They brought Twin down,
mm-hmm.
gave it a completely different function, which
Mm-hmm.
some might argue isn't actually twinning a spell, but
Yeah, it's a
I
little
think it
weird.
works. It's a little weird word wise, but
mm-hmm.
I think it works. I like it. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Quickened has basically the old multi-spell rule baked into it now to try to keep it in check
Mm-hmm.
because it's not there. Yeah, and a lot of the other ones saw a lot of buffs.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, much better balance.
So here's one that I included in the list because it was something I noticed starkly as I read through the spells, and that kind of lent itself strongly. At that time, we were really like, that was when I was having my most negative feelings about 2024, and this really amplified those feelings quite a lot, which was that like all the fun, flavorful like abilities and spells got sacrificed at the altar of word count. So many
Hmm.
spells have been truncated to make them quicker to read, simpler to play. Maybe those advantages are worth something. They definitely are worth something. But the downside to that is we lose so many interesting interactions and moments and things. Like the command spell. I mean, very famous scene in Critical Role where Caduceus at the end of the adventure goes to the main villain and tries to, command him to like empathize, command him like empathize, like feel, like think, like really think about what you've done, about what you've made people go through. And like that,
Such a caduceus move. Like,
uh-huh.
yeah.
Like, and that's great. We love moments like that in games. Like, there have been so many times where people have used command to cast a specific phrase, a specific word that I would never think of that are really fun and interesting. I had a player cast command spend. So, like, somebody was, like, at their shop and spend, and so then they started spending money on their turn, like buying stuff. Very silly stuff. Count. Dropped a bunch of quarters on the ground. Said count. And started counting the coins on the floor.
Great.
Yeah, just really fun ones. Like, really, really good ones. And,
Like
mhm.
that
uh,
open season narrative flair that you want to
mhm.
reward when a player's so clever with it,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
And then things like enhanceability, they had all these unique little abilities for the different stats that you boosted, and some of them were like quite good.
Owl's wisdom. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like advantage on strength checks, advantage on Cat's Grace gave you advantage on like Dex something. Yeah, I think it lets you jump further. I don't know, but they gave you a bunch of. They had a bunch of different little effects that were all like very fun and very interesting, very flavorful. And there are just a lot of spells that have like had little truncations like this, and it's. I think it's a net negative for the game. I think it's a net negative. I don't like it.
I was having a debate with Pack Tactics in the YouTube comments about how Command is still got a lot of, at least for my money, DM fiat on it. They were saying like,
Mhm,
oh, with Flee, the creature has to move away as fast as possible, as fast as they can, so they have to
mhm,
take the dash action. I was like, I don't want to be telling a DM that like if it's not written hard coded in a spell,
mhm,
I don't want to be telling the DM, well, the words say this, so ergo you have to, make your monster do this with its action. Like,
mhm,
there's still a lot of DM fiat in command, but
mhm,
I, and that's the thing, like, if that's what you were trying to get rid of, if you were, because I really think, and this is maybe I am a victim of getting everything I ever wanted.
mhm,
I wanted more clarity. I wanted more system language. I wanted them to move away from natural language
mhm,
to get rid of the ambiguity in some of these rules, some of these spells and
mhm.
whatnot. And what's happened is they have done that, and it's part of the flavor, and I might even say the soul of 5e, that it was a little bit more loosey goosey, a
Mhm.
little bit more narrative, a little.
Mhm.
They have made it a far more codified mechanical system in 2024, and I
Mhm.
wonder if that doesn't do a discredit to the spirit of 2014.
Yep.
Um, yeah, you know what? -1.
Yeah. I think this is just a strict change for the worse, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they wanted to fit in more art, and they
Hmm,
lost
hmm.
the art of play.
It's like poetry.
Speaking of another spell that lost its flavorful ability, Hunter's Mark. You can't use it to track shit anymore. What the fuck? Why would they take that out? Why would they? Why would they cut anything from
I,
Hunter's Mark? Um,
or leave it as concentration, or at least
yeah.
leave it as concentration for the ranger, or step away from the changes they made to it in the playtest, which actually made it a little bit better, assuming
Mm-hmm.
you weren't getting any more than 3 attacks, which I suppose a lot of characters are now,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe it's better it stayed the way it is. But yeah, Hunter's Mark just and then they built the entire ranger route
Mm-hmm.
-1. I'm done.
Yeah.
Hunter's Mark. Bleh.
I I mean, in the old version I put it was okay, not because it was actually like an okay spell. I think it was actually a bad spell even back then. But it was okay because it was like perfectly functional. Like if you wanted to take it, there
Yeah.
were builds that could use it. There were builds that would make good use of it. It was fine. They've had 10 years since then. Fine isn't
Yep.
acceptable anymore. Like give me a
Yep.
good spell, especially if you're going to put it at the heart of the fucking class. Give me a good spell.
Yep.
And they didn't.
Yep.
So it's a minus. Yeah.
Nope. Yep. Don't
Uh
like it. Makes me mad.
yeah, shield spell.
Speaking of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your take, Jay?
This is a tough one for me because I mean there's a part of me that just says -1. You know, it didn't change, right? It gets the same score. But there's a part of me that says 0 because defensively marshals are not in as bad a place as they were in 2024. We have ways of knocking enemy prone. We have ways of giving enemy disadvantage on attacks. We have ways of imposing disadvantage on attacks. We have and disadvantage lasts until our next turn. You know, protection fighting style. We have sap to impose disadvantage on their next attack against us. We
Mhm.
have deflect attacks on the monk. You know, there are a lot of new defensive options that make martial better. The new uh,
Defensive duelist feat.
defensive duelist feat, yeah, that actually works until the start of your next turn. So it's actually as like close to as good as the shield spell now, or at least closer to as good as the shield spell now. So there are a lot of like little changes that raise everything around Shield to the point that Shield is maybe not as much of an outlier as it used to be. Um, and I think that that's great. I think that that's good. But why not fix it? You had the chance. You had the chance. All they had to do was make it scale on proficiency, or just say that it doesn't stack with an equipped shield or something like that. Like This spell single-handedly makes wizards the best defensive class in the game because they can multi-class into another class to get shields and armor, and then they can take this, and now they have not only the best AC in the game from their multi-class, but then a +5 on top of the best AC in the game, giving them the even bester AC in the game. Which is a bad thing for. It's a perfect spell for what it's intended for, which is a 13 AC sorcerer and a 13 AC wizard.
Yes.
That's what it's made
Yes.
for. But it doesn't go on those because people dip into whatever and go over here and do all this to get AC out the roof. And then they come back and they get shield still. And there's nothing in shield that conflicts with it. And it's just like, fix this. Why? Why is this not
Yeah.
fixed?
I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
they went for that rising tide
Mm-hmm.
raises all ships thing, like try to give marshals some options to do similar.
Mm-hmm.
And while I appreciate that, I do think it was the wrong call design wise. I was
Mm-hmm.
actually watching a video by Inside Check, great name for a thing. Um, and the analysis of it was really that. It's like if bounded accuracy is a core tenet
Mm-hmm.
of the system, anything that is just an immediate +5 at first level, a 25% increase
Mm-hmm.
is out that stacks with everything else is out of bounds. It's way out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it stays that way. It only gets better because it gets attached to a resource you value yet less and less as you get better, as you level up. Yeah, no, it shield should have been nerfed. Everything else shouldn't have been buffed.
Mm-hmm.
-1.
Yeah. I like that you've grouped everything bad together here. You've sort of put us in a hell dimension after a very positive start. Uh, so Conjure Mind on Elementals it would be a -5 if I could do it. It's a -1. It sucks ass. I can't believe this past playtesting. We fucking told them it was a bad spell. We put it in the comments. I know people gave that feedback. It was a bad spell when they playtested it. It's a bad spell now. It should have never been printed. It is the worst spell in 5e now. It is the worst spell of all outlier spells. I think it's that bad.
Yeah,
I think it's worse than
it
Force
is.
Cage.
It
I think it's
is.
worse than anything else. Because Force Cage
Yeah.
lets you turn off an enemy. This lets you trivialize encounters. This lets you turn
Yes.
every fight going forward after you get it. There are now two kinds of campaigns. There are campaigns before you got Conjure Mind Elementals, and there are campaigns after you got Conjure Mind Elementals. Because before you got it, there's a fun tactical RPG, and then afterwards, there's the one guy in the corner blasts you for 100 damage in round one, and then the fight's over. It's ridiculous.
It is. And the thing I don't understand is they got the feedback, but then they made another,
Mm-hmm.
they put in another new spell that druids also get at the same level
Mm-hmm.
called Font of Moonlight that does 2d6 per hit.
Uh-huh.
And it has, so not as much damage, but it has like some better riders. Like you can take a reaction to give a creature that hits you the blinded condition.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone seems to like it. I've never heard a single negative thing about this spell. I've seen lots of builds already using it,
Mm-hmm.
except it doesn't upcast to ridiculousness
Yeah.
for no reason.
It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
I don't get it.
And
But
then we get
I mean,
into.
I think it's going to be banned at every table,
Mm-hmm.
or at least homebrewed in some way. Yeah.
Well, the good news is that it's not alone because we have the emanation spells, um,
Mm.
which, uh, uh,
Like the thing is, they were already like I
yeah,
expected Spirit Guardians to get put through the ringer. I
yeah,
expected it to do like 1d8
uh huh,
instead of 3d8 because of the ways it could be leveraged. You
yeah,
could turn it into that holy chipper shredder and conjure woodland beings, which is now the reworked versions now, the druid version of it, which gives you an even more powerful, like 1d8 ahead,
uh huh,
Spirit Guardians. Plus, it lets you disengage
yeah,
as a bonus action for free. There, and we're going to get into it when we talk about it, but the real kicker is that now they proc. Now they're usable not just when a creature enters the what they're calling emanations, the effect, the spell effect around you, not just when they enter it on a turn, not just when they end their turn there, but
mm-hmm,
when the effect enters their area on a turn.
mm-hmm,
And that's where we'll get into the unholy
mm-hmm.
madness that is the monk.
I mean, the funny thing about the emanation spells is that effectively what it means is that the conjure spells, which were broken and got completely redesigned, didn't get fixed. That
They
there's
just got broken in a new way.
yeah, they're still just as bad
Yeah.
as they were. You should still ban them all, probably. Like you should probably ban every conjure spell, honestly, and we'll get into why here in a moment. Let's take a oh, hang on. Do you hear that? The angels are singing. We're in a blessed place.
Ooh.
A brief
Okay.
respite. Unarmed shove. I think it's great. I think it's cool. I think it's like
Amazing.
yeah.
Love it.
I think it's nice. Like being able to knock an enemy back as part of an unarmed strike. It like makes it's like weapon mastery for your fists. It's neat.
Yep. Yep.
um.
Yeah, codifying it like they codified two weapon fighting under the light weapon property,
Mhm.
codifying grappling, shoving, knocking prone or whatever
Speaking
under
of
unarmed
which,
strike makes total sense.
mhm,
Yeah, grappling, amazing,
I think it's
super
great.
good.
It
Was good
works.
before,
Mhm.
is possibly even better now.
Yeah, it's definitely better now because the grappler feat doesn't suck. Uh,
Hmm.
so and also there's a origin feat that supports grappling builds. So like you've
Yeah, the
got a lot
tavern
of
brawler. Yeah,
yeah, you got a lot of built-in support from level 1. You're doing good. So I think grappling is better than it's ever been.
and because
Unfortunately,
grappling. Oh, sorry.
no what?
I would say because grappling was really its throughput was in combat. Like that's
Mhm.
where it was happening.
Mhm.
And it was one of the rare places where skill checks were still something you cared about in combat.
Mhm.
Skill checks happen in combat, but often they're incidental. Like I want to move
Mhm.
over this box. Can I do it? Make me an athletics or acrobatics check or whatever.
Mhm.
But you were trying to shore up either your athletics or acrobatics because you didn't want to be grappled or because you were trying to grapple.
Mhm.
And the skill system is a little bit more loosey goosey. It's a little bit looser. It's a little bit more narrative,
Mhm.
and it's not really supposed to see too much use in combat. And because you can get expertise and stuff like reliable talent and jack of all trades that just juice skills to the hilt.
Mhm.
I'm really glad to see grappling is just a saving throw now.
And it's also just
Eventually
part of that
getting out of it is still a
philosophy.
skill check, but
It's part of that philosophy of everything is one role now, which we'll get into more in
hmm
one of our
hmm
later
hmm
episodes. But they've done a lot throughout the classes and everything else to make sure that you don't have to do two roles to get your thing to function. Like you don't have to make an
hmm
attack and then make a whatever, right? Like grappling, just they make a save and it's done and it's
hmm
easy. But
Yep,
unfortunately, it
and
ties into monk carrying, which is my
yeah.
name for a broader category of just like it's a combination with the emanation spells where you can carry around a character who has an emanation, and because of the stupid way that they worded emanations, things take damage when they enter it when the emanation enters their square. Not when they enter the emanation. When the emanation enters their square. So they don't have to be doing anything. You can carry your guy into their square and then back out of their square and then, like around the battlefield. And it's still only once per turn. So you can't just like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But you can, you're the best thing that a cleric can do now is to get somebody right on the edge of their territory, blast them, then step out of that range so that somebody else can then grab them and drag them back into that range on another turn and do the damage again, and then drag them back out of that range, and then somebody else can do it again and again. And as we all know, nobody likes being edged for an hour.
What a setup for that punchline. God bless you, sir. God damn.
It's terrible. It sucks. I don't know why it's in the game. Get rid of it. Why did we
The
do
real
this?
Because the thing is, it's so at odds with itself. We
Yeah.
fixed grappling by making
Right.
it so it's not an opposed skill roll,
Uh-huh.
so that you can't just guarantee you're grappling someone.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't do the old strategy of necessarily grabbing the enemy and pulling them into,
Mm-hmm.
the spirit guardians the clerics got up. But now I can just grab my cleric who can fail saving throws for free in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
I just pick him up and pull it, throw him into the enemies, and I'm now guaranteed to proc that damage
It's
on my
that
turn, and it's costing me one unarmed attack.
it's that thing you said about like clarity versus like flavor or whatever, and how they made
Hmm.
everything more clear. I mean, this is certainly more clear than the rules for like these AoEs were kind of confusing previously, like when you take the damage. It
Yes.
was a frequent source of confusion. So they did one job, which was to make it more clear. Unfortunately, the clarity that they added was it always works all the time forever. Get fucked. Which is not good.
I remember Jeremy Crawford saying, like, oh, we made some changes to things based on playing Baldur's Gate 3. And
Mhm.
he specifically called out Spirit Guardian, saying, it feels so right that you run into enemies and proc the damage. They
Mhm.
run into it and proc the damage. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's fine in a system where you can't ready an action or
Mhm.
be grappled, which
Mhm.
neither of those things exist in BG3. I've
Mhm.
been tempted to reinstall it and see what would happen if I pushed Shadowheart with Spirit Guardians up into
Mhm.
a group of enemies, because I cannot find a clear answer one way or the other if that would
Mhm.
work. But like now you have clerics who are going to cast the spell. They are going to and their best play might very well be to ready their action to move again, to try to proc Spirit Guardians twice on their turn. It's deviant. They all need to be Spirit Guardians, Conjure Woodland
Uh-huh.
Beings. They all need to be once a turn, not once a round. That's my homebrew.
No, the opposite. Once a round, not once a turn. Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
That one. That the one
Yeah.
that makes it not fucking ridiculous.
Genuinely, monk carrying makes me want to throw up. So let's move on. Surprise!
All right,
Hey,
surprise.
angels are singing again.
Surprise.
It's good.
Yay. It's great. It makes so much better. It doesn't make a fight where you get surprise
Uh-huh.
basically mean it wasn't even a fight. You just decimated everything immediately.
Or a fight where you get surprised just feels like bullshit as you sit there taking damage
Yeah.
for several turns and can't do anything about it.
Yeah, it's
Y-
not
oh
fun.
wait, hang on. Maybe you could have the barbarian class where you can't be surprised, and then you get to be the only one who takes an action that turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Woo. But
Or
yeah,
maybe you're
no.
the assassin where all your good shit only works if you get surprise,
Yeah,
which I don't think I've ever been
yeah.
in a game where there was ever a surprise. Maybe in one of the games we played in one of the sessions I had in your campaign,
Hmm.
but I honestly cannot think of a time I've ever had surprise
Yeah.
in a combat
Well,
in
because you
5e.
can't give it to players. Because if you do, the fight's over, and there's no point in playing it.
Over, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a bad mechanic, and I'm glad that they replaced it with basically making it irrelevant. Because, frankly, I don't want combat to boil down to who got the drop on who, because that's not fun.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
yeah. Oh,
All right,
see,
Jay. Let's All
well,
right, Jay.
it's been an
Good feelings
hour,
gone. Let's
so
fight.
we should probably just end here.
No. No. I will be heard.
Uh,
I
so
have the conscience. I will be.
I think that
No, go ahead.
hiding is okay. I don't think it's better. I don't think it's worse. I do think it's better. I definitely don't think it's worse. I think it's just okay. I think it was actively bad in the old rules. I think it's fine now. I wish it was more clear, and I still feel like we're missing a rule from it. So, yeah.
And we've already had this conversation, dear viewers, so
Mhm.
we will not belabor the point. I think it's worse only in that
Mhm.
it is now working at cross purposes, because
Mhm.
it used to be the case that hiding and invisibility were separate.
Mhm.
They worked together. If you were invisible, you could always try to hide.
Mhm.
But now hiding gives you the invisible condition
Mhm.
with certain triggers as how it ends. And those triggers are, some of them are hard and fast, like, you attack, cast a spell with a verbal component, straightforward.
Mhm.
But some of them are like, you make a
Oh my
sound louder
god.
than a whisper. Here he goes.
Oh
I'm
my
going for it. Because
god.
Jay says, oh, you'll just use common sense. And I'm like, that doesn't exist.
It does. It
It does
does.
not.
We know what a sound louder than a whisper is. It's how I talk.
You
It-
see, but I'm like, it's raining. I'm walking through puddles. Are the splashes louder than a
they
whisper?
are
Is it the
not.
DM's call? Is it mine?
That's
But
not.
that's your call as the DM.
You're not stomping through puddles. They're
And
not that loud.
anyway, but the real crux of it is, it used to be the case that
Mhm.
you could be invisible, but people would still know where you are, because they could be, they'd hear you, they'd see your steps working through, moving through the puddle, if that's what's happening or whatever.
Mhm.
They could hear you. They could
Mhm.
sense you. They could smell you. Certain creatures used to
Yeah.
have advantage
That's
on
still the
perception checks with
case.
smell. Is it? I
It
don't
is
think
still
there's like
defensive
perception checks
because
or smart. I
there's
think they just get expertise in like
so,
perception now.
so here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think is I'm gonna change it to a -1. Here's why.
Okay,
There's
fine.
they don't fucking define passive perception. They don't tell us
Yes,
what
they
it does
really
or how
don't.
it interacts
But
with
it's
the
there.
system. They don't tell us how
Yeah.
it interacts with the system. So, okay, we have a person, they hide, they go invisible, right? There's a guard who's standing in a hallway. So I'm invisible now by the mechanics.
Hmm.
I lose invisibility when I make a sound louder than a whisper. When a
Hmm.
guard finds me, which they define earlier in the ability as using an active search check or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
and then when I make an attack, right? That's when I lose invisibility. So nothing about passive perception loses me invisibility. So unless my opponent actively searches for me, so let's say a guard is just standing around, he's just just chilling,
Hmm.
vibing, minding
Hmm.
his own business. I walked
Hmm.
right by him. He can't detect me. He can't sense me. He does because he's not actively searching for me, is he? He's just like
No,
standing around.
no,
So is
no.
he? My common sense tells me he finds me. That's where the finds me rule would come into play,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Like he finds me,
Hmm.
but there's no mechanics for that. There's no mechanics to
No.
say that. There's nothing that tells you that. We have a passive perception stat. I assume if the passive perception stat is higher than our stealth, that they find us. There's no rules for that. There's nothing that says that. There's nothing anywhere that says that. So you didn't finish writing it. You got us halfway. And like I get that maybe the DMG will have these answers. But uh everything in the player's handbook should work in the player's handbook. And right now stealth doesn't work.
It
Part of the rules
it
are
doesn't.
missing.
But that's the thing, right? Like, if I'm invisible, normally that would be my, means by which to say I could sneak past the guards at all.
Mhm.
But there'd still be a chance they can detect me, so
Right.
I need to make a
Right.
stealth check.
Because
But
obviously
now
the
I've made a
invisibility is
stealth
not
check.
meant to be literally you are invisible. It
Yeah,
is meant
yeah,
to
it's not
convey that
magical.
you're moving stealthily, you're moving sneakily, you're moving in a way that like to avoid being perceived. Enemies are constantly like not actually they're not like a turret that like faces a certain direction. There's no facing rules by default in D&D. So you're
Hmm.
kind of moving
Hmm.
your gaze around, you're looking in different directions, you're keeping your awareness around you, keeping your head on a swivel, and the invisibility portrays you as a sneaky person skirting in the edges of their vision, the periphery of their vision, just out of line of sight, everywhere, all at all times, getting around them. But if that's the theme, then passive perception should interface with that in some way to say a person who's keenly aware of their surroundings is better at diffusing a person with stealth. And so, the what the fuck?
It
Yeah.
is it is a sticky wicket, and I'm really wondering how
Mm-hmm.
it's going to work. I've just been kind of, at least for
Mm-hmm.
the my purposes, I've just been homebrewing it. Is yeah, you can get the invisible condition if you take the hide action and you roll well, but there's no people don't know where you are, at least for the purposes of the games I'm
Yeah, and
running.
I think that's always been in D&D. That's always been in D&D. Like that they don't know that they know kind of where you are. And that makes sense cuz like, when you use the hide action, they saw where you were last. They kind of have a general vibe on where you are. And there's nothing in the new rules or in the visibility condition that says they don't know where you are. So
Mhm.
there's nothing specific that says they don't know where you are, and there needs to be if the rule is that they don't know where you are. And since there's not, then they have to have a vague awareness of you are, and that's what the invisibility is doing. Disadvantage on the attack. They kind of know
Yeah.
where you are, not quite, so they take an attack at disadvantage, and that accounts for not knowing where you are. But yeah, the other half of the rule is missing. The passive perception part of the rule is missing, and so I'm more positive on it than you are. But I still wish that the whole rule was here and done and made sense. I
Yeah,
can't
I
believe we did a whole nother stealth system and it still sucks.
it's still not fully fleshing it. And I realize conceptually it's hard
Mm-hmm.
because like it's not a condition you have against the world. It's not a thing you have. It's a contextual
Mm-hmm.
thing. I am hidden from these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get that it's hard to map into the system,
Mm-hmm.
but man, does it feel like it is been both improved because
Mm-hmm.
like the invisible condition has been fixed up.
Mm-hmm.
It works a lot more like we'd want it to. for example, which is nice considering it's now kind of key to stealth. They've definitely like the conditions by which you can hide. Like previously, it was pure DM fiat whether you
Mm-hmm.
could hide or not. It literally says the DM says if the conditions are right for a
Mm-hmm.
character to hide. Right now, it's like no, you have to have 3/4 or total cover, or you
Mm-hmm.
have to be in an area of heavy obscurement. Like they've really fixed a lot of stuff, and then they compound it together in a way that makes it so confusing.
Yeah.
But we could go
And
on.
I would say another thing about this is a really funny sort of some really funny stuff like the spell see invisibility now in
Oh
stealth.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Which
Ruined
is
stealth. Yeah,
well, the thing is you so it only ruins stuff if they can see you. They do need to have
yes,
line of
yeah,
sight to you. If you're hidden behind a
yeah,
thing, then it doesn't.
yeah.
But
That's
basically,
still
the
obscured.
moment
Yeah,
you step out of cover, you lose invisibility.
yeah,
With see
yeah.
invisibility on. So like,
It's not pure like infrared predator vision where you're
yeah.
seeing through objects or whatever, but
But it's
it's
so weird
definitely
that see
weird.
invisibility interacts with stealth. It's very
Yeah,
bizarre.
right,
And then
right.
things like true sight, how do they interfere? Like,
Hmm,
because
hmm,
they let you
hmm,
see
hmm.
invisible creatures. So it's like, yeah. It's very strange. But it is what it is. I think it's kind of funny. I kind of ran through these numbers earlier today, and I think I ended up with like a 6. And then you have obviously ruined me, and then put me at a 3 here. Um,
My negativity is destroyed. Has gotten half your
yeah.
positivity.
Uh, but I think that this is about right, honestly. I think this is about right. Like, I am positive on the new edition overall, but it's not. It's not what I wanted it to be, honestly. Like, it's better, but it's not what I wanted it to be.
You were
Uh,
hoping for,
mhm.
from going to -8 to +8,
Yeah.
-11 to +11, right?
Yeah.
And it's better for sure,
Mhm.
but it's not all the way.
Yeah, they didn't fix stuff that they definitely knew needed fixing, and they introduced new problems that I can't understand. With 10 years of D&D design experience, why would you say when the emanation enters their square? Why would you ever write those words in that order? Who made you do this? Who kidnapped you and made you write this? What emanation pervert made you write this? I don't understand.
I
uh,
think generally speaking, is
mhm.
it an improvement from 2014?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, look at our scores:
absolutely
-8
100%.
to
Yeah,
+2, -11, +3. Like a huge improvement.
for sure. Absolutely an improvement. But is it as much as we could have hoped for?
Nope.
It's not quite there. But
Nope.
one must temper their dreams with reality sometimes.
I mean,
And
do we have to though? Because I think that some of these were easy home runs, and they just fucked it up for no reason. Why the fuck is Hunter Smart concentration? It
it's
doesn't make any sense.
it's okay, Jay. It's gonna be okay.
Why did Conjure Minor Elementals
It's still fun
pass?
to roll dice with your
It is still fun to roll dice with my friends. It is more fun than ever. I mean, the new feats and stuff like that make it better. It's just I just don't understand.
No, I've ruined you.
Anyway.
I've taken the most powerful optimist in the world, and I've cut his scores in half.
Yeah.
No.
Listen, I'm still a swing of 14 points, so overall, I'd say we're doing
Overall,
all right.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um. Overall, yeah, positive. All right, I guess we're just repeating ourselves at this point. So, thank you very much for joining us. I hope that you found something of value in all this.
In our clearly
Hmm.
not unhinged,
Hmm.
clearly rock solid mathematical model that proves beyond a
Uh-huh.
shadow of a doubt D&D 24 is okay, I guess.
Look how close it is to 0.
It's a
It's so
zero-sum game.
it's so
You fix a
close.
feat, you break a
Uh,
spell. D&D, everybody.
yeah. Take it easy, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.